Okay, hello everyone. Today's book I'm going to read about a special day at Tappletons. So this is Thanksgiving at the Tappletons. It's a special day and they have the stories about how they celebrate this day with their family. So that's the book. It's by the author Eileen Kennelly and illustrated by Marianne Lefleur. Thanksgiving at the Tappletons. Thanksgiving at the Tappletons was always a big day. Thanksgiving at the Tappletons meant, of course, the Tappleton family. Mr. Tappleton, Mrs. Tappleton, Jenny Tappleton, Kenny Tappleton, and grandmother and grandfather Tappleton, and Aunt Hedda and Uncle Fritz, and most certainly, of course, the turkey and the trimmings. That's the family. It was still dark when Mrs. Tappleton lit the oven and took the big turkey out of the refrigerator. Just then, someone knocked at the kitchen door. It was Mike, the milkman. Good morning, Mrs. Tappleton. I thought you might like some eggnog. As Mrs. Tappleton reached for the eggnog, the turkey slipped from under her arm. Now, on a warmer day, this might not have been a problem. But this Thanksgiving Day was quite cold, and the step was covered with ice. Before she or Mike could even think, the third turkey had slithered into the yard. Get it! Shouted Mrs. Tappleton. Mike reached out, but the turkey skidded past him, through the gate and into the street. Hurry! Screamed Mrs. Tappleton. Stop that turkey! The milkman chased the turkey. Mrs. Tappleton chased the milkman, and the turkey slid down the hill into the pond. Plop! Splash! It bubbled out of sight. When Mr. Tappleton came down to breakfast, he took a long sniff. I don't smell turkey, he said to his wife. Of course you don't smell turkey, she replied. You have a cold. I don't have a cold, he insisted. Mrs. Tappleton shook some pepper in the air. Her husband sneezed. See, she said, you do have a cold. Right here. Now I'm wondering, now why did Mrs. Tappleton sprinkle some pepper over Mr. Tappleton? Can someone tell me why did Mrs. Tappleton do that? That's strange.
So he can sneeze?
So he could sneeze. He's sneezing. But why is that?
He don't want to, she don't want to know there was no she like lost the turkey.
Yep. I guess that's what maybe Mrs. Tappleton doesn't want Mr. Tappleton to know that there is no turkey. After breakfast, Mr. Tappleton put on his coat and scarf and hat and gloves. I'm going to the bakery to buy our pies. Mrs. Tappleton handed him his boots. Wear these, she said. I know for a fact it is quite a slippery day. Sim's bakery was so crowded the line reached out onto the sidewalk. Mr. Tappleton hated to wait in long lines, so he went to the diner for a cup of coffee. By the time he got back, the long line was gone, and so were the pies. No pumpkin, no mince, no rhubarb, nothing. Mr. Tappleton was afraid to go home with nothing. Two boxes tied up with string, please, he said. Mrs. Sims stared at him. You mean two empty boxes? That's right. My, they feel light, remarked Mrs. Tappleton. Certainly they are light, retorted Mr. Tappleton. Mrs. Sims prides herself on how light her pies are. Mrs. Tappleton set the table. She called to her son, Kenny, you may make the salad. There's lettuce in the crisper and carrots and radishes too. Kenny's face grew pale. Yes, just yesterday he had emptied the crisper and fed all the vegetables to the rabbits in Mrs. Butterworth's class. How could he tell his mother? He couldn't. So he covered the empty salad bowl with aluminium foil and stuck it in the back of the refrigerator. When the others went to pick up the relatives at the train station, Jenny stayed behind to make mashed potatoes. Every year, this was her job. She loved it. This year, she thought, I'll make them even better. I will use the blender. Just as Jenny flicked on the switch, the phone rang. It was her best friend Nora. If there was one thing Jenny loved to do better than mashed potatoes, it was talk. Jenny talked and talked and talked to Nora, and she might still be talking today had not a wet glump of something hit her on the back of the head. She turned to see what it was. Splat! Another glump hit her in the face. The blender was going wild, and mashed potatoes were flying everywhere. Without even saying goodbye to Nora, Jenny hung up the phone, scrubbed her face, and wiped mashed potatoes from nearly everything in the kitchen. She just finished as the others came back. Uncle Fritz patted his stomach. I'm hungry, he said. Grandfather Tappleton laughed. I'm as hungry as an elephant. Everyone sat down at the table. It was a Tappleton tradition for grandmother to say the Thanksgiving prayer. As soon as the turkey is ready, she smiled. I'm as hungry as two elephants, said grandfather. Mr. Tappleton went to the oven. I'll carve the turkey now. He opened the oven door. The turkey is gone. Mr. Tappleton searched on the table, under the table, and in every kitchen cabinet. He looked into the sink and in the broom closet. I can't find the turkey anywhere. Mrs. Tappleton took a deep breath. She told them how their fine turkey had slipped out the door and down the steps and across the yard and through the gate and down the street and plop splash into the pond. So much for the turkey, said Uncle Fritz, and his stomach rumbled even louder. Never mind, said Aunt Hedda good naturedly. We'll fill up on the trimmings. I'll get the salad, Jenny announced. Then grandmother can say the prayer. Jenny set the bowl on the table and peeled off the aluminium foil. Everyone stared at the salad that was not there. I fed the rabbits at school, confessed Kenny. Uncle Fritz looked downright gloomy. So much for the salad. His stomach rumbled again. I'm as hungry as 3 elephants, said grandfather. Kenny jumped up. We'll have Jenny's mashed potatoes. He brought the pot from the kitchen and lifted the lid. I was on the phone, said Jenny meekly, and the blender went wild. So much for the potatoes. Uncle Fritz's stomach rumbled even more. I'm as hungry as 4 elephants, grandfather declared. The pies, cried Mrs. Tappleton. I will get the pies. I'll say grace as soon as the pies are cut, grandmother said with a smile. Mrs. Tappleton brought in the boxes, set them down, and untied the string. You brought home 2 empty boxes? She glared at Mr. Tappleton, who covered his ears. 5 elephants, groaned grandfather. The dinner room was quiet. Everyone looked down at the empty table. Uncle Fritz muttered something, but it could not be heard above the rumble of his stomach. A tear rolled down Jenny's cheek. No Thanksgiving dinner, she sniffled. Nothing to say a prayer for, sighed Kenny. Grandmother smiled. Of course, there is something. There is more to Thanksgiving than turkey and trimmings. And then Grandmother Tappleton asked everyone to bow their heads and to hold hands around the dining room table, and this is the Thanksgiving prayer she said. Turkeys come and turkeys go, and trimmings can be lost. We know, but we are together. That's what matters. Now, what's served upon the platters? Amen. That was a wonderful prayer, said Aunt Hedda. Mrs. Tappleton jumped up. We have liverwurst and cheese in the refrigerator. I'll help fix the sandwiches, offered Mr. Tappleton. Jenny wiped her tears away. I'll get the pickles. Kenny laughed. I'll open a jar of applesauce for dessert. And so the Tappletons had their Thanksgiving dinner after all. Uncle Fritz's stomach stopped rumbling, and Grandfather Tappleton ate enough liverwurst to feed 6 elephants. In fact, everyone had plenty to eat, but most of all, they had each other. Who can tell me what was the story? How did it end? How did the story end?
Good.
Good. And so, what did they do when they had no turkey dinner? The Tappletons, how did they enjoy and celebrate that tradition when they had no turkey, no food, no salad, no trimmings, no dessert?
They find some new food for Thanksgiving.
Mhm. Yes, Jaden.
What?
So over here, we had
Mhm.
we saw this book, right? Over here, they have the Thanksgiving tradition, and they had no food. So how about share with me what is some tradition that you have? What does tradition mean, right? First of all, what does that word mean, tradition?
Um, you do the same thing every year.
You do the same thing every year, yeah? Is it something like your family, what you believe in, what you celebrate, that becomes a tradition? Is that
It's like an event.
it's like an event? Okay. So share something. What happens? Do you have a family tradition? Something that you celebrate? What is something that you celebrate in your family or a family?
A birthday,
You have a birthday? Yes. You celebrate birthday.
Christmas,
Vietnamese New Year,
New Year.
Easter,
Mm-hmm. You have Easter. What else?
Christmas,
Christmas.
Labor Day.
Yep. And there was something that happened in the story. What was the problem in the story? Can somebody tell me what was the problem in the story? What happened?
No food.
they have no food.
They had no food, right? That was the problem.
They were lying to each other.
They were lying to each other. Hmm. So how do you think they were lying to each other? What was it?
Oh, that's
The little boy pretend there's salad in the bowl, but there's not there's
that.
salad. He feed it to the rabbits already.
Hmm.
And everybody like also do that. Like they always lie, and then like also they like the dad like pretend to get have no there was no pie no more, so he just got two boxes of pie, but there was nothing in it. Just
Hmm.
lying.
And the girl was making smashed potato, and was on the phone for too long, and the mashed potato like fly out of the blender, and then
They go crazy.
she just have an empty pot out.
Hmm. So where the mashed potato flew out of the blender. Yes.
1:55 right now. When?
Yep.
Uh,
And so the last question. So how did they had the problem? So how did Grandma Templeton solve the problem? How did she solve the problem?
um, he
And
said
a different kind of they
I
get some more food,
those the
and
problem.
potatoes,
How they solved the problem?
bread,
They
applesauce.
tell those something else to play of, and those it's called their family.
Mhm.
Also, she said that family on Thanksgiving is good, so they can spend time together.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, yep. So they can spend
Thanksgiving
time
is an
together.
event.
Right? So no matter they had no food that Thanksgiving, but they were glad, they were thankful that they were together, right? And they found some other food around the house left over or other food that they quickly made sandwiches, right?
Yes.
So did you all like this book?
Yes. Yes, we
Yay!
all did.
You all did. Thank you all.
We liked it.
Yes, we did.
Okay. Thank you all for being good listeners and you all
Welcome.
understood the book and answering all my questions.